Hi, and welcome back! Today, we're going to make a start with looping and granular synthesis with the brand new ADDAC112 voltage-controlled looper and granular processor. As you can tell from just looking at the module, it offers a lot of hands-on and CV control over its features. Once you understand the basic principles and layout though, everything starts making sense, and you'll quickly get lost in ways to make and alter new sounds. So in this video, I'd like to explain the basic principle of looping and granular synthesis, and then we'll go over most of the functions and features of the module, along with some basic patches. There's a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. Like the name suggests, the module focuses on making and using loops to which you can apply granular processing. Let's visualize that concept. This line in the center is representing the ADDAC112. You can feed it audio either from the modular or from other instruments with a special line level input. That audio can pass straight through the module, so you can hear it if you wish. Now, at any time, you can start a recording. This can be a very short or long recording. Recordings you make with the module can be saved in different banks on the SD card that comes with the module, and it's very easy to add new or load existing loops. Once you have a loop going, you can listen to the loop as well as the incoming audio, and control things like the playback speed and direction. You can keep the loop as it is, re-record over it whenever you like, or keep re-recording over it for more real-time processing. Whether you use a static loop or one that's continuously being re-recorded, you can now use the active loop for granular processing. This means you can create a third layer of sound by selecting snippets from the loop that are played back. These are called grains. The ADDAC112 offers a lot of control over these. By selecting a start and end point, you can set your grains to be up to the full size of the loop or very short. You can select how many of them are generated at the same time, how fast they are being repeated, where they are located in the stereo field, apply an envelope to them so the grains fade in and out, control the playback direction, and so on to create interesting textures and sounds. The possibility to record, save, and switch between different loops, the amount of control you have over the generated grains, and the visual representation of what's happening when it comes to playback and grains is where this device shines. I'm not going over all the features of the module, so definitely download the manual if you'd like to learn more. But we'll cover the basics in a few sections. First, the simple mixer section. Then, the looper section, used to record, play, and select loops. Then, the extensive granular section. And finally, the menu and screen. We'll cover the features of the CV panel in each of those sections. The mixer section is the most simple one and controls the output for the module. It offers 3 knobs to control the volume for each of the parts I explained earlier: the input signal, the loop, and the grains. You can make a mix or isolate one part if you like. The only thing that's added here is the grains feedback control, so you can use the grains you generate as part of a new recording or overdub. The CV panel has all the inputs and outputs. There are 2 mono jack inputs for modular level stereo signals and a stereo jack for line level signals. You can set the input gain with this knob, and all the inputs are mixed down to one mono output signal right here. At the bottom are the left and right output, as well as a mono output of the main mix. There are also CV inputs for each of the main sections: the dry signal, the loop, and the grains, as well as CV control over the grains feedback. The looper section is also fairly straightforward. This is where all the recording and playback happens. Once you have created a new bank, you can either start a new recording, creating a new file in the current bank, or record over the current loop. You can fill a bank with up to 99 files or up to 30 MB per bank. You can switch between loops with the knob here, and changing loops within a bank is immediate. The play button plays, pauses, or re-triggers the loop depending on the setting of the switch here. This switch determines what happens when you stop a recording. Either it starts overdubbing immediately, it starts playback, or it stops the recording. When overdubbing, you can use the decay knob to keep a part of the previous recording and blend it into the new one. Then there's a button to set the playback to forward or reverse, one to stop the recording, and one to clear or erase the current loop. You can set the playback speed of the sample with the knob here up to -2 and +3 octaves. And if you like, you can quantize the pitch to a scale using this knob. There are 7 preset scales available, but you can also program your own via the menu and screen. If you created a loop that's continuously being re-recorded, which is necessary to apply granular effects to incoming audio, you can use the controls here to create variations to that by changing the probability a loop is being overdubbed or adding a delay after reaching the end of a buffer. These settings are useful to add some randomization, for example in slow changing ambient sounds. The CV panel gives you control over the main functions of the looper. At the bottom we have stop, new recording, record, play and playback direction. And here on the side we have CV control over the recording probability and delay function. Then this row of 5 knobs with things like loop select, scale and pitch all have their CV inputs as well right here. I'd like to make a video with more extensive patch ideas soon, but let's start with a few basic examples using just the looper section. For example, if you use a controller to send a gate signal to the play input and a CV signal to the 1 volt per octave input, you can easily play a sampled chord. If you record a longer single C note with something like a modulated wavetable oscillator, you can use that as a sound source. You can use a sequencer to send the CV sequence to the pitch of the loop and trigger an envelope to control the volume of the loop. Here, a simple modular voice is patched up to the input of the ADDAC112. One 8-step sequence of the Korg SQ1 is used to create a simple melodic sequence for the modular voice. The first step of the second sequencer is used to start a recording and re-trigger the looper. If you press play in this setup, the looper records one run of the 8-step melody and then keeps getting re-triggered. Then you can either mess with the live synth voice and melody or the loop to create interesting effects. The granular section is where you define all the settings for the grains. They are all neatly laid out in this section. This knob sets the amount of grains generated at the same time, from 0 to a cloud of 17. To determine the size of the grains, you can use this knob to select the starting point of a grain within the loop, and this knob to set the length of the grain relative to the starting position. These positions can be either free or restricted to quarter or eighth portions of the loop with these switches. Every single grain is regenerated after it's finished playing itself. With this knob you can control the delay between regeneration, either immediately or with a delay up to 5 seconds. Instead of a grain being regenerated based on new values, if settings are being modulated or randomized, you can use this section to set either a probability or a set number the grain will repeat itself. Especially if you have multiple grains being generated at the same time, it can create nice effects if some grains are being repeated while others are being generated based on new settings. This knob lets you select the playback direction or any probability in between directions, from 100% forward playback to a 50-50% chance to a 100% chance of reverse playback. With the final knob on the left side, you can set the volume of the grains. You can further shape the grains by applying an attack and decay envelope to the grains with these knobs here. From grains with a hard edge to a soft edge, a full fade in and fade out, as well as a full ramp or fade out. You can tune the pitch of the grains with this knob, and if you wish, you can have the pitch follow the quantization settings here as well. And finally, there is a knob to spread the generated grains in the stereo field. You can smoothly morph between full mono to a random spread across the stereo field to having all the grains panned either hard left or right. Four of the major controls have small knobs called deviation. These knobs are connected to an internal random generator and make it very easy to add modulation to those parameters without using external CV inputs. They follow a clever principle. Let's use volume as an example. With the main knob, you can set the volume anywhere between 0 and 100%. Let's say you set the main knob at 50%. Then you can use the deviation to set a bandwidth in which new grains can be generated, to create random variations. With the deviation knob at 50%, the bandwidth goes from wherever the main knob is set to 50% up and down to the maximum and minimum settings. These proportions stay the same when you move the main knob, for example to 75%, to create an interesting spread without dead spots. This allows for very easy randomization of these parameters. All 15 control knobs for the granular section have their own CV input with the same layout on the control panel. Again, let's use the granular processor for a few basic patches and sounds. In this patch we used earlier, you can multiply the pitch from the sequencer to the pitch of the grains and add those to the sound. Let's also add some tuned grains to the patch where we use the Beatstep Pro to play some chords. You can also create new sounds by just using the grains of a sample as audio source. Here, a simple organ sound is used to create grains, controlled with a 1 volt per octave signal from the BeatStep Pro. The ADDAC112 really is a hands-on module. Shaping grains and messing with samples is immediate and fun. The menu is really only there for some added features. Actually, you'll probably use it mostly just to create new or save and load samples, banks and presets. We haven't covered presets yet, but you can store the settings of all the knobs on the front panel along with loops in presets. This makes it very easy to switch between completely different loops with granular settings in performances, for example. You can easily select a preset with this knob, but if you set it fully to the left, the preset function is off and all the knobs on the front panel are live. I'm not going over all the functions in the menu, but you can use it to set things like sample rate and bit depth of the recorder, quantizer settings, scales, and so on. The screen, however, is a feature you'll quickly get dependent on, as it shows pretty much all the information you need, as well as a good visual representation of the grains being generated. Here is a breakdown of the features. On the top, it shows the selected loop, whether a file is in mono or stereo, the amount of grains active, the used scale, input level, and play, record or pause state of the looper. On the left, you can see the volume level of the grains, as well as any randomization occurring. And on the right, you see the panning of the grains. On the bottom, you see a representation of the attack and decay envelope settings, playback direction of the grains, pitch of the grains and pitch of the loop, and the selected preset. On top of that, there's a simple representation of the current loop in the buffer, and the middle of the screen is used to visualize the grains. You can see the start and end point settings for the grains, as well as the actual active grains visualized in the stereo field, with all randomization settings shown live. The module is an interesting workstation for loops and granular synthesis. And I'd like to come back to this module with more advanced patches and audio demos soon. So let me know if you'd like to see something specific. And if you'd like to support this video series, or you want to get access to the PDF sheets of the illustrations I use in many of my videos, have a look at my Patreon. And if you'd like to learn more about things like clock dividers or quantizers, have a look at any of these videos. And if you'd like to see more modular content from me, smash that like, subscribe and bell button. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching and see you next time.